Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today is Christmas in July, day 13. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. This Christmas in July season, I am sharing stories about my early days as a medical coder, and I'm also talking about stories about me personally. It's a way for you guys to get to know me better. So I hope you all enjoy the series. Today I am taking a break from memory lane, and I'm talking about one of my favorite tasks to perform as a medical coder, which is delivering a provider education class. So let us begin. Okay, when I get the green light to be able to do a provider education class, I usually have to set it up with the department, and they have a person designated who does all of the training calendar stuff. And I have to get on this calendar and tell them that I would like to do a class, and they always indulge me. And they know that it's for the benefit of my providers. I heard a term, and I use this term quite frequently since I've heard it, from the amazing Brian Quee. He's another YouTuber, and he said the term infotainer or infotainment. And the thing about it is that's exactly what we do, right? As medical coders. The goal when we are giving a class, a provider education class, right, is that we are engaged enough with the providers so that we keep their attention and we get them to get the message that we're trying to deliver. Because so many times we don't get this training. We don't get this training at all when we are in school. And when we are in school, it's all about coding, coding, coding. You'll learn about the education later, or you're on your own when it comes to education. So for me, what I like to do is I like to keep it simple. Whenever I do these classes, there's a lot of charm that goes into these classes because I want them to be engaged. I want them to be relaxed as much as they possibly can, because providers, whether they are surgeons or PAs or nurse practitioners, they've got a lot on their plate, and they are very concerned with their patients. They're very concerned with their production and productivity and things like that. And all of what we do plays a part in that, right? Because we are the ones that are responsible for making sure that they are getting credit for everything that they are doing. So doing these provider education classes is a great way to start. And being very engaged in them is the way to go. So I like to pick one topic, or I like to pick no more than 3 minor issues that are going on. And if you have the time, and I always ask for 1 hour because 30 minutes is too quick, and there's nothing that you can really cover in 30 minutes in a room full of providers, because they're going to have questions. So you want to be able to have time for questions. If I am going to have a information packet as part of this presentation, this is the thing that I do. I will make it no more than 10 pages, and this is table of contents already included in this, okay? I try to make my presentations look as professional as possible, and I put all my references on this presentation so that they know that this is coming from a reliable source. It's not just Blue the coder is saying this. There is information to be able to back this up. This is me supporting what I'm telling them. But I make these slide decks no more than 10 pages because the more pages they see in a slide deck, the more they're going to turn off to, like, I don't, this is too long, it's too much, it's too confusing, I don't want to hear it. This is not the only class you're ever going to have. Okay, so if you are out there and you are going to perform these classes, think like that. You know, this is not the only class you're going to perform. You know, you have to have material for other classes as well. If you have a situation where you have lots of issues, you need to pick your number 1 issue and address that head on first before you get to anything else. This is a priority. And the only way for it to be a priority is if we as a medical coders take it seriously. So this is why I am very insistent when I want to give a class for my providers. I try to be consistent with the time. However, there's lots of things that go on. So because they've been so well trained, you know, the time in between, there's a little bit of lax, you know, time in between. So that's okay. When I am telling them, okay, we have this 10 page packet to go over, I am not the one reading the material. It's my providers that are reading the material because I already know what I wrote. And this guarantees that your audience is going to be engaged, because especially if you are in a room with only your providers and you are standing there, and I tell them this every single time, I know what I wrote. So it is everyone's turn to read aloud and talk. We're going to talk about these slides that are in this packet. So I tell them too, either I can pick who reads first or you all can take turns, however you want to do it. And they usually like to go around the room in order so they know who goes next. So I said, this is fine as long as you guys read it. And so I have found when I started doing this, that they have been more reactive and asked more questions, because it's not just me, pointing to a slideshow and saying, okay, it's this, and this is on slide number 1, slide number 2, slide number 3, because providers can fall asleep. At least this way, if they are going around the room, they don't have that opportunity because they have to pay attention. So it keeps them awake and it keeps them alive in this meeting. And that's what I like. Throwing in humor along the way is also a really good way to keep them awake and engaged in the meeting, because again, there's nothing more boring than a boring class and nobody wants to be there. They have things that they would rather do. I want them to look forward to these meetings. I want them to know that, I'm there and available, because they're not always going to ask you questions when you're in these meetings, because they don't want to ask questions in front of their peers. They would rather ask you personally by yourself. But you always kind of put that line out there, like, I'm available, guys. If you have any questions, let me know. And they will usually be receptive when you make yourself available to answer any questions they have. And you don't necessarily have to be fishing later for questions. It is just your presence and them knowing that they can ask and reach out that hand to say, I do have a question about this, and you'll be there. That's the most fun thing about doing provider education classes, because when you talk to them and they get to see you, and especially if they're seeing you on a regular and consistent basis, they get used to you. A lot of times providers are very hesitant to reach out to coders because they don't know. And sometimes all they get from coders is query after query after query, or they're being told that they're losing credit because they're not, the codes are not being captured appropriately. So this upsets them. I mean, naturally so. I mean, it's a matter of communication. And in medical coding, communication is key to everything. It's key to the documentation. It is key to relationships with your providers. And it is key to providing education. And that's the one thing that I would say that coders should invest time in learning is proper presentation and being present when they are with their providers. Because it's not a us versus them. It should never be that way. And for some people, they feel like it is. They feel like it's us versus them, and it's not. For me and my providers, the way that I look at them, the way that I think is we're partners. And when they meet me and they know this, it puts everybody at ease, because they know that if they have a problem, they can always come to me. If they have an issue, if they have a question, I'm available. But keeping the education to the point is really very helpful. Keeping the problem list that you're addressing to a minimum, and even though, again, you may have a bunch of issues, it doesn't mean that you all have to address them at that same time, okay? You can break it down, and you can always do little bits at a time. Little bits at a time always help. So the provider classes is my favorite thing. I also do a coding tip of the week. And coding tip of the week is just how it sounds. It's a coding tip of the week. If there is a pattern of things that I see in their documentation, or maybe there's a little bit of slippage, in forgetting like laterality and I have to query, I will put that out in coding tip of the week. I will make sure that they understand that laterality is hugely important. And when you work in something like ortho or podiatry, it is really important because those are your codes, left or right, or is it bilateral? And it's just a nice little reminder every single time. And they actually really enjoy this, especially when it's to the point and the door is always open. But you always leave the door open when it comes to provider communication, no matter what. They may resist you in the beginning, but the more that you apply yourself and the more that you are showing that you are prepared, because there's nothing worse than not being prepared, but the more that you show that you're prepared, the better. So that is one of my favorite tasks. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that if you are out there and you are hesitant to talk to your providers, that you will reconsider and get to know them, because they are people too. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will see y'all on the next episode. Bye!